friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Alita, these are my books, and you've reached Alita and the Books. In today's video, I'm going to be telling you about the 12 best books I read in 2022, and the 7 books that surprised me the most, along with, if I rated nonfiction, these 3, because there's one more that I don't own, would be on my favorites list. It would bump everything. Now, these are in no particular order, but these are my top 2 books of the year, and I'm not sure which one is number 1 and which one is number 2, but these are definitely my favorite books of the year. Like, no doubt about it. These ones I definitely enjoyed, but they're not ordered from, like, least favorite to most favorite. I hope that makes sense. We are also not going to be focusing on any, like, worst books content. I thought about doing a video for my worst or most disappointing books, but I don't need that negativity right now. So if you're interested, I could maybe tell you some of my most disappointing books, but I just want to look onward and upward, and I want to look to the future. I want 2023 to just be very chill, very happy, and I don't want to focus on the negativity because that is one of my big things that I'm going to be focusing on personally, is to be a more positive person. When things go wrong or not the way that you planned them, sometimes it's easier just to kind of be like, that was terrible, and kind of like wallow in your sadness. Because, sometimes it's easier to look at the negative. And I'm going to work really, really hard this year to see more of the positive things. So instead of being like, okay, so I'm a teacher. So instead of going to school, teaching, and then like none of my kids understanding math, because that happens quite often. And sometimes I question if it's my teaching or if that concept is just really hard. Instead of being like, oh, it's my teaching, I'm a terrible teacher, what I want to say is, okay, math didn't go how I wanted, but maybe my class was great at spelling words today, or something like that, or we had a real fun spelling bee and everyone participated, or whatever. Like, tomorrow we're going to have hot chocolate. My kids don't know yet, but I'm excited. We're going to make hot cocoa in a crock pot, and it's going to be like such a nice welcome back to school, and I want to focus on that kind of positive thinking. So, positive vibes only on this channel, and for that reason, we're going to put like best books, most surprising, and if I rated nonfiction, these would be favorites. I'm going to put this dog down because this is Bella, and I think she just wants her mommy, but I'm going to put her down on the chair and maybe she'll lay down. I think we're going to start with the most surprising books, and I think that I have 7 here, so we're going to just dive right into these first. Basically, the most surprising books are just books that I didn't expect to like. And I think all of them are 4 or 5 stars. And maybe I came in with like a negative mindset and I'm like, I'm not going to like this, or this book isn't going to be for me. But I was gladly mistaken. The first one. I'm pretty sure you've already heard me talk about this book because, like, I will not shut up. But this is Donut Fall in Love by Jackie Lu. This is a really, really cute and funny light heat to love romance. And I think he's a football player. Is he a football player? I don't know. He's some kind of celebrity. And he's gonna be doing this celebrity baking show, but he doesn't know how to bake. So he contacts, what is her name? His name is Lindsay, who is the owner of this bakery that he went to, and he accidentally, like, made a mess of things. I'll just put it to you like that. And that's kind of why they had, like, this hate to love, but it wasn't really hate. It was just, they just didn't know each other, didn't like each other that much. But it was really, really cute because she's like, fine, I'll teach you to bake. You get 6 lessons, and throughout these 6 lessons that you're with them, they fall in love with each other. The next surprise was, Colleen Hoover as a whole. I thought she was overhyped, and, like, I wasn't gonna like anything that she wrote. There are some that I didn't jive with, but that's okay. Every author has those, maybe. This is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This one is very emotional. I wouldn't even call this a romance. I would say it's more of like a chick lit woman's fiction. But it's an emotional ride because you follow Lily and Ryle. And you follow them through their relationship. And then you get flashbacks of Lily and Atlas, and, like, a huge trigger warning in here is domestic abuse. It's very, very prevalent, and I think it was done really well. I know that sounds so weird, but I don't know. I enjoyed this book for what it was. Did it rip my heart out and make me bawl my eyes out? Yes. And does it have, like, a lot of trigger warnings, and is it really terrible? Yes, it is. And I would not say that this is a romance because, like, don't go into this thinking it's a romance. And also, like, just be careful with the triggers because I know how triggering some of this stuff was. There's, like, very domestic scenes from when she was a kid to what happened to her mom from her dad, because her dad was very abusive, and now it's today, and Lily and Ryle are together, but Ryle might not be such a good guy. And, like, I thought it was done really well because, like, at first I was rooting for Ryle. I thought, oh my gosh, he's a good guy. And then, like, halfway through, you find some things that are not okay. And I'm just going to say that. I'm going to end it right there and go to the next one that surprised me is a young adult thriller named The Companion by Katie Allender. I read this chunky beast in, like, 2 days, and it's 450 pages, 439 pages. But you follow this girl, Margaret, who is an orphan, and she gets picked to go to this house where these people are, like, basically fostering her. But what Margaret doesn't know is that this family picked her to be, like, their daughter Agatha's friend, but Agatha is Agatha is disabled. She can't really speak too much or move. And then weird things start happening. It was very creepy, very dark. I was questioning myself. I was questioning Agatha. And I was even questioning Margaret. And I didn't really see the ending coming, but I think that you might be able to get some clues that would help you see that was going to happen. But I enjoyed this a lot. The next one that surprised me is a rom-com. So I am a rom-com lover as far as like movies go, but I've never really given rom-com in book format a try until this year, and I found Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter. Absolutely love this. This is 5 stars, like highly, highly recommend. But you follow Olivia and Colin. Okay, so Colin is texting Olivia, but it's a wrong number type of situation, and they know each other in real life. He's actually her brother's best friend. And they start texting, and then he's just like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, it's the wrong number, or whatever. You would think that would be the end of it, but it's not. They keep talking, and then, boom. They find out that they know each other in real life, and it makes it kind of awkward because, like, he doesn't want to date his best friend's little sister, and she doesn't want to date her older brother's friend. And, you know, slowly but surely they fall in love because it wouldn't be a rom-com if they didn't fall in love. And it was so cute. It was just really lighthearted and cute. The next most surprising book for me was another romance. This is Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly. This has really great LGBT rep. So you follow Dahlia and London, who are competing on this food show against each other, and in the competition they slowly, it's very slow burn, fall in love with each other. And there are so many extra layers to this story because you get the food competition, you get the love story, you get London, who is transgender, and you get London's story in there, and I just thought it was amazing. And then we're going back to thrillers for the most surprising. So I've been reading Megan Miranda for 2 years now, I think, and I usually enjoy her books. Like, I give them 3 stars. They're fun, like, palate cleansers in between some more emotional reads. And I just usually have a lot of fun with them. Do I have to suspend my disbelief for a lot of them? Yes. Do I care? No. So, when I picked up The Last to Vanish by Megan Miranda, I did not expect to fall in love with this book. Like, every single part of it was amazing. I think this is her newest release. It came out in 2022, so I'm assuming it's her newest release. But you follow a couple different storylines. So you follow today, where Troy has checked into this little hotel. He's actually staying in the cabin behind the hotel because they have a couple cabins too. And he is there looking for his brother, who went on this hiking trail near this like secluded hotel, and he was never found again. And throughout these chapters, you find that, oh, maybe his brother wasn't the first person to go missing. Maybe there are more stories in there. And the way it was written was just so... It was just a great read, okay? It was like, it brought me there because it was like I was shivering in the dark. The lights were out. You know, and you follow these different paths of people that have gone missing. And Cutter's Pass is what it's called. It's a very small town, mystery. I would even consider this one a thriller, and it was so action-packed that, like, I never got bored with it. And then my last, like, most surprising book of 2022 was The Better Sister by Alfair Burke. This had been on my physical TBR for a while. I think I got it at my local bookstore. Let's see. Yes, I did. But I was just like, you know, I never reach for it. I'm probably not going to read it. So I was going to just unhaul it. You follow these two sisters, the Taylor sisters. There's Chloe and Nikki, I think. Chloe and Nikki. And Nikki was basically like the troublemaker of the two, even though she was older. And Chloe was like straight A's, got into an Ivy League school. You know, she's basically the perfect sister, perfect daughter, perfect whatever. And then, now it's like 15 years later. Chloe is now married to Nikki's ex-husband, Adam. And you don't know where Nikki went, but you have some suspicions when you read this book. And this just, like, blew my mind. And I'm like, oh, because I thought I knew. I was like, oh, okay, I know what's going on. I know what happened. I know. I didn't know. And that's it. Now we're going to talk about the 3 nonfiction books that if I rated nonfiction, that these would be at the top of my list. Probably just under these 2. So it'd be like these, then that. But I don't read nonfiction, and for me, it's more like I can't get myself to rate something that actually happened. Because, like, how can I rate your truth? That's not fair. Yeah, sometimes nonfiction books, especially like true crime books, they can be very dry in the writing and the tone, and I don't enjoy those ones as much as, I don't want to say a more skilled writer, but maybe a more skilled writer. So I'm going to talk about these 3 nonfiction that, like, would be down here before these. I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Everyone's talking about this book, and with the title like that, I was like, oh, I'm not sure that I want to read it. But I did. I actually listened to it on audiobook. That's why I don't own it. And I highly recommend the audiobook because Jeanette McCurdy reads it to you. And she goes into depth about what it's like to be a child star, about some of the abuse that her mom specifically put her through, and about her eating disorders and her struggles with eating disorders. See, I grew up watching iCarly, and I loved Sam, who is Jeanette McCurdy's character. And especially as a little girl watching that show, I don't think that I really understood that, like, TV shows, those actors are just playing characters. That's might not be how that actor would handle different situations if it wasn't scripted. If that makes sense. And, like, I thought that me and Sam were, like, besties. And I thought I knew a lot about her. But through this memoir that she wrote and everything, I just felt like I connected to Jennette McCurdy on a whole different level. And I have a newfound respect for her. And some of the things that happened to her as a child, it's not okay. But we're going to move on to more nonfiction. Yeah, why not? Let's go to the other memoir that I have on this list. This is 3 Little Words by Ashley Rhodes Corder. She actually has an updated one that, like, I might want to read eventually, but this follows Ashley Rhodes Corder in the foster care system. And, like, her mom was not capable of taking care of her because her mom was more into, like, drugs and things like that. And, you know, it's a very sad situation that a lot of kids go through. But Ashley and her brother got separated and they went to different foster families, and she kept going to new foster families. And this book was so heart-wrenching because, like, we have a broken system. We have such a broken system for our foster kids, and they are the ones that suffer, the children. Like, first off, separating you from your siblings, not okay with me. Second off, like, some of the things that this girl encountered at these foster homes just devastated me. Like, I was crying my eyes out this entire book, and it made me so mad at the world because like I said, they are the ones that suffer. And my last nonfiction is a true crime. These are not the only 3 nonfiction that I read, but these by far are the best nonfictions that I read in 2022. This one is The Killer Across the Table: Unlocking the Secrets of Serial Killers and Predators with the FBI's Original Mindhunter by John Douglas and Mark Bolshacker. The writing in here is so good, and it's just a bunch of interviews with 5 or 6 serial killers and just kind of understanding what was going on in their head. So my top 10, but these for sure are my top 2, so we're going to talk about them at the end. So I'm going to maybe rapid fire them, probably not, to be honest. So the first one is A Dog's Journey by W. Bruce Cameron. This is the second book in A Dog's Purpose trilogy. And this one broke my heart. I actually have a reading vlog where I was up at like 2 in the morning finishing this book, crying my eyes out. I'll try and link it. But it was just as good as the first one. Broke my heart. And that's exactly what I would expect from this book. Then there's All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn Greenwood. I do have to say, this one will be triggering for some people. It was triggering for me, but somehow it worked. And like, here, let me back up. So you follow Wavy, who was born into this family of drug dealers and criminals. And no one cared about her. No one took care of her. She kind of had to grow up on her own and take care of her baby brother. And then walks in Keelan, who is a drug runner for her dad, but he kind of starts hanging out with Wavy, and because her name is Wavy, Keelan and Wavy have this like older brother, younger sister type relationship at first. But then it's kind of like a love story between them, even though it's like age gap and forbidden, and it's really, really terrible because I think she's 12 when she meets him and he's 21. And like, I don't know, it made me feel icky and gross reading this, but it was also like really, I don't know how to explain this book because it does make you feel icky and gross, and there are so many things in here that are wrong and terrible, but it worked in this book. I don't know if that makes sense. If you've read it, then you might understand all the ugly and wonderful things. The next book, or one of my top 10, is Fredrik Backman, or Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. This is the first Fredrik Backman that I've read, and I loved it full-heartedly. So, going into this book, you don't really know anything. You know it's about a bank robbery that doesn't happen and a hostage situation, which you don't really know what's going on. But it's about more than that. It's about like mental health. It's about suicide and coping and maybe even a little bit of grief. And again, it was an emotional ride that I don't think I was prepared for when I read it, but I am so glad that I read it. Now we're going to change our tone a little bit. Those were hard-hitting, very emotional reads. This one's an emotional romance, but it's very emotional. So I guess we're not really changing that much. But this is Beach Read by Emily Henry. So I went into this thinking, oh, it's going to be overhyped. I'm going to hate this book. It's not going to be for me, because people pitch it to me as Augustus and January are at the same beach, and she's a romance writer, and he is a literary fiction writer, and they're both kind of stuck in a slump as far as writing goes. So they decide to switch genres for the summer, and that is true. That is very, very true. But it's more than that. It's like she takes him on these dates for research for the romance book, and he takes her on interviews for this like historical literary fiction that she's supposed to be writing for him, and they fall slowly in love. And it was kind of like Hate to Love, which is one of my favorites. Plus, again, all my favorite books have many, many layers. It's not just like one-hit romance. No. Because in this, you also follow January's family. And I can't really tell you anything else about it, but it made me so emotional, because there's like this underlining storyline with January and her family dynamics. And this was such an incredible read. I don't really like slow burn romances. I don't know. Maybe I do, because I've found that I have been liking them last year. So maybe I do like them. Anyways, this was such a layered, emotional, fun, sweet romance. The reason that I like Emily Henry's romances in particular, I like romances that are like true life, because yeah, you can pick up any romance and you get all the feels and like it's happily ever after and it's magic sauce all the time. But in real life, that's not love. That's not true love. Like, marriage and love is hard work. It's not just boom, every day is perfect. And yeah, sometimes I read a romance and I'm like, oh, boom, every day is perfect, and like it's enjoyable, so I don't mind. But I love the books that have the layers and that are like, oh my gosh, that is actually really hard work to be in love with someone and let someone be in love with you. It is hard work. And no one really talks about that. But in some cases, like this book, you can see that it's hard work. And I really enjoy that. Another favorite of mine of the year is Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. Again, overhyped. Didn't think I'd like it. Dummy. This is an emotional legal thriller. The only negative thing I can say about this book is that like it is very repetitive because it's a legal thriller. And basically you follow this trial of this kid named Henry was at this treatment facility, like this experimental treatment facility for autism. And there were a lot of people in this like submarine type thing that was helping treat their autism and the way they act because of autism. And there's like protesters outside saying, well, you shouldn't change how your kid is supposed to be, and like it's controversial, this experimental treatment. And so you have that layer. Then you have the layer of, well, the treatment facility burnt in a fire, and we know it was arson. So you have that layer, and no one was supposed to be there when the treatment facility burned down, but they were running late that day, so there was a room full of people. And one of the people in the room, named Henry, who was like an 8-year-old boy, I think, he died in that fire. And you have multiple point of views. You have the owner of the treatment facility who, if you believe what they say, they did it for the insurance money. But mom of Henry is also on trial for killing him because, well, maybe he was too much for her to handle. Maybe he was too much of a handful. Maybe she couldn't do it anymore. And there are so many other people and so many other reasons of what could have happened and what might have happened and what did happen. And my head was spinning the whole time because I'm like, oh my gosh, and you get like little bits of information and then it finally all comes together and you're like, oh my gosh. I thought the ending was a little predictable of whodunit, but at one point or another, I questioned each and every suspect. And I thought, I thought it could have been any of them. Another thriller that made my favorites in 2022 is The Chain by Adrienne McKinney. I read this in February of 2022. And did not expect much from it because it is a kidnapping thriller. I don't like books about kidnapping, or at least I thought I didn't. I'm gonna read this little blurb to you because I don't think I could even do it as much justice. So here we go. The morning starts like any other. Rachel drops her daughter Kylie at the bus stop and heads into her day. But then a cell phone call from an unknown number changes everything. On the line is a woman informing Rachel that she has Kylie bound and gagged in her back seat, and the only way Rachel will ever see her again if she pays a ransom and kidnaps another child. What? That made me wonder, like, if I were a parent, like, would I be able to kidnap another child and put them in harm's way? Or what? I mean, I know a lot of parents are like, oh, I'd do anything for my kid, but, like, would you be able to kidnap another child? And this was just a high-stakes, action-packed, emotional thriller. And then we're going to talk about the last thriller that is on my favorites. Yes, the last thriller that's on my favorites. They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. Everyone loves this book, and there's reason. So you follow Scarlett, who is a college professor who has been murdering men for the past 7 years, 10 years. I don't remember. I think it's been like 7 years, but don't quote me on it. And she only murders men that deserve it. So it's not like she's just going around willy-nilly killing all these men. She kills only the ones that deserve it. But she was sloppy with her last one. And they are now investigating the last murder as a murder, even though she tried to make it look like not a murder. And now the detective is like, hey, this looks suspiciously like this case from last year and the year before that and the year. No one's caught on to this. And so now all the men that she has killed, now all their cases are being opened back up, right? I see you, Lane Fargo, I see you. This was just such a fun time about murdering men. It's definitely a revenge tale. And, I mean, I know Scarlett's technically a serial killer, but, like, I loved her. Yeah, I loved Scarlett, even though she's a serial killer. Like, she was very relatable and very likable. Now we have some romances, and then we'll get to my top two. So we have The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. I read this in a reading vlog, which I'll link up here. I was reading it like Heather from Belle's Library. And she actually put out a recommendation video while I was filming that, so it was pretty cool. This, again, is a layered emotional romance. Yep, that follows Calla and Jonah. I think his name is Jonah. But Calla is going to Alaska from Toronto. She's going to Alaska to be with her dad, who she didn't really know. And he's like sick and he doesn't think he has much time left. So they're trying to reconnect, and while she's there, she meets this guy named Jonah, who she instantly hates. But their banter together and their chemistry is so freaking cool. So it's a very slow burn, hate to love. But again, there's so many other things going on. Like, at first, honestly, I don't really like her because she's kind of stuck up and snooty, and then she kind of like learns to be more down to earth and realistic, and her and Jonah's romance was so cute. Like, I just really love the banter. And when you can write a book and I can feel the chemistry on the page, you did good. And this is by far my favorite series that I read this year. It's a companion novel series, and I don't own the Happily Ever After because this is the Happily Ever After playlist trilogy. I don't own the first one because it's my least favorite. So we have The Friend Zone and Life's Too Short by Abby Hemensey. My all-time favorite, I think, is Life Too Short, which is the third one. But these are just romance companion novels. They're very realistic. They show that romance and love is hard work. It's not just you wake up every day, you're happy, and everything's perfect, because that's not true. Like, that's why I like Abby Hemensey, because her romances are very, like, relatable. It's like, okay, yeah, that is hard work, but we're still gonna do it. Like, in The Friend Zone, you follow Kirsten and Josh. Is it Josh? Yeah. Who basically, they're basically friend-zoned. And they're like, oh no, we're never going to be together, but everyone else can see that they would be good together. They just can't see it. And there are so many layers in both of these books. I'm going to stop saying that because, like, really, it's just about emotional, layered reads for me. These are very relatable romances, and they're like real life. And then Life's Too Short was my all-time favorite. This one follows Vanessa, who is a YouTuber. But she has something going on in her life. She has some kind of disease that she doesn't think she's gonna live to see 30. So she does these like crazy adventures, and she films them and everything. And then her sister leaves her niece in her care and just like disappears. And you meet her love interest, Adrian, I think is his name. He comes over to her house one night when the baby's crying really loud and upsetting him, and she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't sign up for this. And like, it was like that kind of thing. And it's a very slow burn, emotional romance. And then my final, like, my two favorite books of the year. I can't really put them in 1 and 2 order because they are both amazing. And I really don't know which one I like more. But there is After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So After I Do follows Lauren and Ryan, who are this already married couple, which I found out that I love in books. But they aren't putting in the work, and they aren't trying in their marriage anymore. They're like, well, we're married. Everything should be easy. It's 7 years later. And they decide to take a break. So for this break, they cannot talk for a whole year. They can't text, they can't email, they can't call, they can't see each other. After that year, they're going to get back together and discuss if they want this marriage to work or not. And I just thought it was so relatable, for lack of another word. Because, like, something that not a lot of people know, because I don't talk about it, is that before my husband and I got married, we had this year where we were apart almost the entire year, and it was so hard because, like, you know, neither one of us were putting in the work. And we were fighting constantly. And I really, really thought it was the end. But, I mean, obviously we pulled through it and everything. But it just made me feel, like, seen. And so in Lauren and Ryan's marriage, they were fighting all the time. They weren't putting in the work. And, like, just because you're married doesn't mean that you don't need to show that other person that they're appreciated, that they're loved. Like, to me, you should show them more now that you're married. But it was just such a great emotional, like, pull at your heartstrings, make you sob buckets of tears type of book. And on that same note, my other favorite book of the year was All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. So All Your Perfects, I forget their names, Quinn, Graham. Okay. So in All Your Perfects, Quinn and Graham have been married for 6 years, 7 years, something like that. And their relationship is getting kind of monotonous, boring, you know, same old thing every single day. And Quinn and Graham are trying to have a baby, but they're kind of like scheduling time for that, and that's like the only time that they really do anything together. And they're having problems getting pregnant, and it's kind of ruining their entire relationship and their marriage. And this one, to me, just seems so relatable. Like, I know I've said that for every single book on this list, but that's why I love them, is because I feel seen. I feel like it's relatable. It's something I can relate to. And that's what I look for in my reading. So I'm sorry if it sounds like a broken record. But I've been with my husband since high school. And I've known since way before that it would be really hard, if not impossible, for me to have kids. And, like, he knows, because we've openly had discussions about this, and I know there are many different alternatives and things like that. But for a long time, like, my biggest dream in life was to be a mom. And, like, yeah, there's fostering, there's adoption, there are different ways. And I know that, and I'm okay with that. But now that we're getting to that place in our life where, you know, my career is going pretty well, he's getting into his dream career, and everything like that's going good, like, this could potentially be our next steps. And reading this just broke me down. And that's precisely why I loved it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe if you're new around here, where I read relatable, emotional reads for you. Actually, it's for myself, but you get to enjoy it too.